in a perfect world for me, what would the Federal Reserve be? The Federal Reserve would be it would be a clearinghouse. It would be almost basically like an automated clearinghouse that they primarily serve that core function of settling payments between Bank of America and JP Morgan. And just for people who don't fully understand this, the way that banking basically operates is that we bank at banks and banks bank at the Fed. And so when banks clear payments, it's not just, I don't just send my deposits directly to Anthony. The way that payment actually clears, if Anthony works or operates at a different bank, is the banks actually send reserves to one another. So they send central bank reserves. So they send their deposits at the central bank to another bank. But from a clearing perspective, the Fed's very good at that. And it's a mostly automated process. They don't have to get involved and, make a lot of discretionary decisions or anything. Whereas things like quantitative easing and changing interest rates are much more discretionary. It is literally, 12 people sitting at a table, having a meeting, saying, talking about their, the glory days of the 1970s inflation or whatever it was. And, stuff like that, and then deciding, hey, where should the interest rate be? And this sort of discretionary interest rate management, I think it doesn't work very well because the driver of the vehicle is just too involved in, trying to steer everything. And if you can create a system that's much more systematic, in my view, you take a lot of these responsibilities off of the Fed's plate where, you could easily automate interest rate management. You could stick interest rates at 3% and just leave them forever if you wanted to, really. That's not necessarily my view, but that's how simple the system could be. Some people I know, like the MMT people, they want to put interest rates at 0 and leave them at 0 forever. So there's automated ways of doing this. Like you could implement like what's called a Taylor rule, which is the systematic equation to just set interest rates in a very automated way. I kind of like something like that. I'd sort of buffer it so that the Taylor rule tends to have a lot of volatility in it. Like the Taylor rule would have taken interest rates to like 10% back in 2021, which, frankly, I think that would have nuked the economy and the credit markets in a way that, it wouldn't have caused, or it would have snuffed out the inflation faster than we did, but it also might have caused something really, really catastrophic with that sort of an extreme jump from 0 to 10. Like you think banks are effed going from 0 to 5. If we'd gone from 0 to 10 in a year, the banks would all, it wouldn't even be a question of whether they're insolvent. They would all be insolvent in that environment on a mark-to-market basis. So, my preference is that we automate a lot more of this. We stop worrying about like when I watch one of these Jerome Powell pressers, I'm like, kill me. This is brutal. Like, why are we sitting around waiting on this guy whose entire career experience is mostly like the 60s and 70s economies, who maybe doesn't even have any really solid understanding of things like cryptocurrency markets and, AI and new technologies and geopolitical events that are having really, really big impacts on the way that all of this works, rather than just automating a lot of this stuff in a way where it's systematic, non-discretionary, not necessarily perfectly decentralized, but at least decentralized in a way where we're decentralizing it away from 12 people who just have PhDs in economics and sit around and theorize about where this may or may not go. So to answer the question, I think we ask way too much of the Fed. They have super blunt instruments. There's no way they can manage all the geopolitical risks and the climate risks and all the political stuff that, we demand from them. And so if I was king of the United States, I would probably, one of the first things I'd probably do is go into the Fed and say, whittle down, hey, how much of this can we reduce to the point where this is basically, like Chat GPT is basically running monetary policy.